Hi, my name is Hugo Kwok, and I am a mix of American, Japanese, and Chinese. In Japan, people refer to me as a Hafu. By statistics, I am a slim minority of 1.5% of the entire population in Japan. So to put that into perspective, if the Shibuya Scramble that I'm standing in right now was the entire population of Japan, less than 40 people only will have a Hafu or foreign nationality in this crowd of 2,500 people. In fact, Japan really is a racially homogeneous country, as ethnic Japanese people make up 98.5% of the entire population of Japan. Due to this racial homogeneity, the environment and experience for foreigners in Japan are a very special and distinct one. While the media tend to focus on the relationship between Japanese people and foreigners, I am more intrigued by the minority within the minority, Hafus. So what is Hafu exactly? Simply put it, it's being mixed race with Japanese blood. By definition, it has the exact same meaning as a mixed race individual. But the term Hafu is a term created by Japanese people to refer to mixed race Japanese people. The term first emerged in the 1970s. As some people had a negative nuance towards the term Hafu for its half of a full Japanese meaning, the term double was created in the 1990s. The term has the exact opposite impression of the term Hafu, as it pushes the message that mixed-race people have double their heritages instead of the subtracted term of Hafu, which describes someone as having only half of the Japanese nationality.
But I do know people who see the term as negative because it means that one person isn't fully of this nationality or something like that. So yeah.
I know being half is being half Japanese and half other wherever you're from, but I also think it's a very racist term because saying someone who is half is just, it makes more sense if you say someone's double, but making it half is, I think, kind of offensive to the person who is.
I am a Hafu myself. And growing up in an internationally minded and multicultural school, I am no stranger to hanging out and being friends with Hafus. Most of my friends are foreigners as well as Hafu. In fact, being foreign or Hafu has become more and more common as mixed marriages are on the rise. In 1987, 1 out of 150 babies were biracial in Japan. That number today is 1 out of 50 babies. On top of that, with the amount of foreigners living in Japan exponentially increasing from 850,000 in 1985 to almost 2,100,000 in 2006, triple the previous amount, Japan are also amidst of a rapid internationalization. In the same period, international marriages boosted from around 5,000 to 40,000 between 1980 to the early 2000s. The increase of foreigners residing in Japan, as well as mixed-race Hafu people, is pretty evident once you got in the streets of Tokyo or even Tsukuba. About 500,000 foreigners live in Tokyo alone, along with millions of foreign visitors that visit the land of the rising sun on a daily basis. While it is easy to spot foreigners out here in Tokyo and Tsukuba, the minority of the minority, Hafus, are not so easy to spot out in the public. While I may look fully Japanese, you may be likely surprised to know that I am also a mix of Chinese and American. Just like me, there are millions of combinations of Hafu mixed people out there that it is hard to just categorize them as this one Hafu group. Often, the Japanese media likes to idolize Hafu people, especially with North American or European heritages, which tend to have a quote-unquote pretty face. Most Japanese Hafus that the public sees on TV and traditional media are mostly models and pretty-faced celebrities. While most Hafu people tend to stick out in this racially homogeneous country, they are mostly praised and well-respected from the normal Japanese public because of this pretty-faced and privileged representation of Hafus in traditional media, especially on TV. But is it all unicorns and rainbows for the Hafu community in Japan? Over the past few months, I've conducted multiple interviews around my school and in the streets of Tokyo to get a gist of what people think about the Hafu phenomenon, the racial homogeneity in Japan, and their racial/segregation experiences. I've interviewed people with various backgrounds of all different ages, from fully Japanese kids to a mid-20s Swedish man visiting Japan. Although I couldn't film my interviews with the strangers in Tokyo, it was definitely a first-time experience. On the other hand, My school, Tsukuba International School, provided me with a pool of various students from many different backgrounds: Japanese, foreign, mixed, and Hafu. The reception of Hafu people in Japan has been a rather mixed bag over the last 20 years. In recent news, Japanese tennis player Naomi Osaka is one of the most relevant Hafu stars in Japan and the world. Osaka is the daughter of a Japanese mother and Haitian-American father. She has grown up in the United States all her childhood, knowing very little Japanese. Her recent success in the US Open and the Australian Open has gathered lots of media attention globally, especially in Japan. The Japanese public and media heavily praised the Hafu player, virtually ignoring the Hafu nationality, instead emphasizing her Japanese side. When Naomi Osaka defeated 23-time Grand Slam champion Serena Williams, NHK announced that Naomi Osaka has beaten American, forgetting that Osaka is also an American citizen. Naomi Osaka has undoubtedly shown light to the social issue of Hafus in Japan, not only on a national level, but on a global scale. In fact, as I started creating this documentary, Japanese noodle company Nissin released a commercial featuring Japanese tennis players Kei Nishikori and Naomi Osaka as anime characters created by Takeshi Konomi, a famous manga artist known for his manga and animated series The Prince of Tennis. In the advertisement, Osaka was depicted with pale skin, wavy brown hair, and Caucasian facial features. This is an obvious contrast to her actual appearance, which she describes as pretty tan. This controversy has quickly turned into a spiral, with people claiming that the noodle company is whitewashing her to make her look more commercially appealing. Nissin has since said that there was no intention of whitewashing and has apologized for the matter. For Japanese nationals, the impression of Hafus are fairly positive throughout, especially thanks to a washed out and sugar-coated portrayal of Hafus in Japanese media. Although Japanese people may not initially notice it, there is a certain organic or unintentional segregation for us Hafus being in a Japanese environment. The traditional Japanese mindset is to adapt and stay uniform to the ones around us. Uniformity is key in the Japanese philosophy. Adding on the racial homogeneity on top of this, naturally, us Hafus become the obvious standout in the Japanese community. This can be seen especially in Japanese public schools, where the non-Japanese kids can often get viewed and treated very differently from the normal Japanese kid. It does not mean that Japanese kids are racist. It does not mean that Japanese kids are discriminatory. It purely means that the demographic of Japan is very homogeneous. Thus, it makes it very hard for us mixed or foreign people to be seen as anything other than an outlier. With the Tokyo 2020 Olympics ahead in about a year, this current period of time in Japan has made us think a lot about internationalization and nationality-based social problems in Japan. The recent exponential internationalization in Japan has also led to an influx of foreigners and new Japanese Hafu children in Japan. Even though Japan may not directly have a racial problem with foreigners nor Hafu people, we must change our mindset as to how we view non-Japanese people, viewing them as who they are instead of what they are.